You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike. Welcome into the Psych with Mike library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and I'm here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm excellent.
So we have a guest. Would you like to introduce our...
We have a guest I'm excited to have.
Yeah.
She's a former student of mine, and I think also of yours at the Webster University program, Dr. Carrie Lewis. And she went on after she left us to get her doctorate. So we did something right or we did something wrong, Carrie?
Something really right or something horribly wrong.
Her enthusiasm blossomed.
That's right.
Her determination to actually get an education.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself.
I finished my doctorate a couple of years ago, and I just got licensed as a clinical psychologist.
Awesome.
And so I've been working this past year at the Children's Advocacy Center, working with kids and families with pretty severe trauma backgrounds. And I'm currently transitioning into private practice to work with the same population as well as kids with complex presentations of any kind, whether it be trauma-related or early onset of some severe mental illness.
So you're setting up a private practice. Mm-hmm. You're transitioning. Mm-hmm. Is your focus you're clinical psychologist? So are you a play therapist as well, or do you incorporate play therapy in the work that you do when you work with young children? Mm-hmm. How do you establish that? How are you going to market yourself?
Mm-hmm. So I really am into psychological evaluations and psych testing, including things like IQ testing and more school psychology type stuff, but personality testing. So that is a really important component of the beginning stages of therapy for me, which is I've found not what is traditional, especially in this area. So doing a comprehensive psychological evaluation as a way of gathering information.
As a foundation.
And also rapport building.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of give that quick turnaround of, I see you.
So when you were in class with the two of us, because this is your interest and your focus now, did you do psychological assessments of the two of us?
I didn't.
Oh.
But,
She wasn't trained at that time.
I wasn't trained.
I was hoping she was going to say, I did, and neither of you were diagnosed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
See, she would have said yes. I would have said, well, that would have been ethically inappropriate.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
So plenty of time
you
to make
go,
up
girl.
that. So that's one thing, and then using that as a springboard for therapy. And again, it's for people with more severe and kids with more severe presentations. So kids who do need long-term therapy. We're not looking at 6 months. It's a year plus.
Well, brief short-term therapy is basically a construct of the insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy is therapy. It takes the time it takes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And for some it might be 9 months, but that probably isn't the people who...
It's like coming back to Earth from space. You bounce in and bounce off and bounce in and bounce off as a break to slow you down. Mm-hmm. I would have clients that would come for 6 months, and I wouldn't see them for 2 years, and they'd come back for a year, and I wouldn't see them for 2 years, and they'd come back for 5 years, or a week. Mm-hmm. They can absorb so much, and then they have to take a break.
Right.
So that needs to be client-driven, I believe.
Right. Well, and it's interesting with kids because they're not the ones making the choice.
Exactly.
So it is important.
Unless they act out more as a way to get themselves sent back.
I have had kids who say, you talk about the trauma mountain and we're getting close to the top.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I want to go back down. And it's like, no, you don't. But, some kids do try to sabotage things as they get, that might be a bit of a derogatory term, but they do things when they get scared of losing an attachment.
A flight into sickness is what we used to call that. Mm-hmm. You get the sense that you're getting well and have more power and more freedom, but that's frightening. Mm-hmm. And so you fall back on what you've always known, which is the dysfunctional rhythm. Mm-hmm. And so they'll act out in some way to reset and need to come back for more.
Right. And cognitive dissonance type stuff is,
Yeah. So you're telling us about your private practice. How does someone get in touch with you if they are interested in the work that you do?
So right now I'm, like I said, establishing the practice, and so still getting together my office space and website, but I'm definitely available by phone. And is it okay if I give my number?
Absolutely, please do.
So it's 314 341-0170. And I will have my website up shortly. My practice is Collaborative Interpretations, LLC.
Is that a .com, or will that be?
It will be, so the website will be collaborativetherapy.org.
.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that was very intentionally chosen because collaboration with caregivers and clients to kind of reinterpret things or see things in a different way, without trying to impose who somebody else thinks they should be. So
in graduate school, one of the things that I remember trying to teach students about was the idea of private practice, because most of the people that I've known professionally never graduated and then opened a private practice. They were working somewhere, they went to work somewhere to learn more skills, but also to transition economically into a private practice. And you try to have these conversations with students who can't really imagine what you're talking about. How do you deal with insurance companies? How do you set up payment modalities? Do you have a sliding scale? What are the rules for that? How much do you charge? How do you figure out where to locate your office? So those are it's one dimension of what we talked about in graduate school. The other dimensions are, what are the skills that you need to learn? How do you do the job? What do you know? And I'm curious about someone on the other side of that going through. What did you think about graduate school? What was it like for you?
So, first round of graduate school at Webster, it was sort of a means to an end for me going in, was that I wanted to be a therapist, and so I need to do this thing.
Right, so hoop you have to jump through.
Right. And it became much more as I went in. I realized that to practice what you preach, you kind of have to practice what you preach, and so it was a lot of self-reflection for me at that stage of my life, is that, I am learning about people's minds, and so also my own mind, which I know is a common thing for students in psychology and counseling programs. So private practice was actually not something I really was interested in. So I heard it, but I wasn't really trying to get that knowledge.
Just let it go.
It was just, okay. And so it hasn't been until recently that the motivations for doing so have outweighed the concerns or the fears or the uncertainties.
Fear is a good word. There's an emotional anxiety that comes from having a guaranteed paycheck and a set work environment to being an independent contractor. And not everyone is cut out to handle the issues that come up with being an independent contractor, because we like the safety of a safe place. And if work is a safe place, we make those accommodations to make that work. We sometimes think about, well, I'll just quit and open my own place, but then those anxieties came flowing up. At least that was true for me, and I don't know about you.
Well, I think that it sounds great. I'm going to quit and I'm going to open my own place and I'm going to be my own boss, and that's going to be fantastic, which is true. All of that is absolutely true. But then you do quit and you open your own place, and then you're like, okay, how many clients am I seeing this week?
Right.
And when I go on vacation, I'm not going to get paid. And so there's a lot of things about that then that are very, very existentially anxiety inducing. But you had always said something to me, and I don't know if Carrie ever heard this, but you had always said, if 80% of your clientele doesn't come from word of mouth, then you're never going to work.
That, and I also said, don't worry about it. Just worry about doing a good job. If you do a good job, people will come.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're worried about, where am I going to get my next client, or I need another $100 to pay the rent, then your focus is not on doing good therapy. You have to trust the process. If you're asking your clients to trust the process, you have to trust the process.
Right. And I will say that for me, my experience was, so I transitioned from working at a hospital I had worked at for 20 years and going into private practice. And when I did that, what I told my wife was, I'm going to try this for a year. And if I don't make as much money as I made when I had my job, so I took the little bit that I had in my 401k and said, we're going to use this as, say, this is my salary for this year. And then if I don't make more by the time this year is over, as I did when I was working at the hospital, then I'll go out and find a different job. And not only did I make more, I made significantly more. And every year since then, I've never, my income has never decreased.
Yeah.
It's only ever increased.
Right.
And so then, the question is, at what point do you stop being anxious?
Oh, well, I know when I first opened my practice, I had been a high school teacher, and I started private practice on the side when I graduated and got my degree. I was actually in practice 5 years before the state licensure law was passed.
Oh, okay.
So then when the law was passed, even though I'd been practicing, I had to go back and get licensed. So I did that, and I built essentially 2 full-time jobs. So I said, I can't take any more clients. I've got to work through with what I have, because I was really committed to teaching high school. I loved it. It's an awesome job. And so that I did, then somebody would call me and say, well, I saw you last year. I need to see you some more. And I'd say, okay, I'll feel a responsibility. I'll meet with you. And so I did 3 iterations of that. And finally my wife said, maybe you're quitting on the wrong end. Maybe you need to quit teaching high school, which frightened the heck out of me. Because I had this wonderful job and a good paycheck and a good lifestyle. And so I agreed, I set a dollar amount. If I can make this much money in 6 months, then I'll turn in my resignation and quit teaching high school. Then when I got out, I found that I would take any client anytime. Sunday afternoon, Monday night, 10 o'clock at night.
Yep.
If you want to come see me, boy, I'll be there.
Right.
Because I was terrified that I couldn't cut it.
Right.
And the person that supervised me at that point kept saying, if you don't set boundaries, you will never cut it. You have to say, I'm only available Wednesday morning at 9. And they'll say, no, can't you see me Sunday afternoon at 3? And you say, no, Wednesday morning at 9. And they'll come.
Yep.
But it took me couple of years to learn that and to absorb that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're helping your anxieties or
Definitely
validating them.
No, because that's sort of what I think I needed the time to even be able to hear. So time meaning time in between my master's at Webster and going back to school, which was a couple of years, and then time since I graduated with my doctorate to see that I have something of value and that I am not going to cheapen myself because, in terms of not charging what I need to charge to pay the bills.
What's the going rate? Yeah.
Right. And that I can say this is what I have available, and if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. And I don't need to, being overly accommodating, which I think I tend to be, isn't a benefit or a strength in a therapist.
I had clients and family members challenge me and say, how can you take money from people in pain? How can you require them to pay for this help that you're prepared to offer? And what I learned to say was, because I'm damn good.
That's what, because I'm good at it.
I'm really good at it, and they'll get better. And so then overall, that's less expensive than continuing their dysfunctional lifestyle. So they won't sabotage themselves as much.
Yeah. And I feel like I can finally say I'm good at it.
Good.
The psych evaluations and the model that I've kind of, developed my own style, I'm good at that. And so I think that I'm ready to be confident in that and share that with.
So full disclosure, you were a student of mine and of Mike's in the Webster program, and then you went on to your graduate program in Indiana?
Indiana State.
What were the differences that you observed in the 2 programs, the instructors and the protocols? How would you describe or compare what it was like?
So Webster was, I was able to fly a little bit under the radar, not because of, it was a bigger cohort, I don't even know, 30 people maybe?
Yeah, probably about that.
Yeah, which isn't big, but.
And so each class would have 12 or 13 people in it, and then there were 8 classes cycled that were going on.
Right. And there was you two, and I think maybe one other professor were the more consistent teachers, but there were some people who would come and go.
Right, a lot of adjunct. I mean, their whole program was adjuncts.
Right.
So we would hire them for a semester or 2, get evaluations, see how they worked out, and then we'd either keep them or get somebody new.
Right. And so Indiana State, there was 8 people in my cohort, and so it was essentially 2 students to every professor. And I've always been kind of a B's get degrees kind of girl. Not that I'm not a high achiever, but I've also, I don't see the point of overextending at times, but it was very different atmosphere, and just my cohort. Nobody missed a single class. Everyone was 5 minutes early. And so it took a good 1 to 2 semesters for me to be on that bandwagon to some degree, to not be the problem student,
the problem child, yeah.
5 minutes late and maybe miss one class a semester. That was the problem.
Yeah.
And so definitely having more accountability, I think, for me. But if I hadn't
You couldn't hide.
I couldn't, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without having gone to Webster first. It was the transition from undergrad to intensive, which is amazing, but intensive supervision and coursework. And so it was different, and I was at a different stage in life, and I knew what I wanted to do more. I knew I wanted to work with kids, whereas, I was planning to do substance abuse when I went into my master's. So
Right.
all those things made it different, but they both got me to where I am. So.
Yeah.
But the PsyD program then sounds like it was really super highly academically competitive, and the Webster program was more, and I think that at least mine and Brett's focus had always been more applied than it was theoretical. And would you say that would be consistent with your experience?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that with a master's program, you have 2 years. And so what is the priorities to some degree, So kind of planting the seed possibly of the theoretical components, but also practical skills. Whereas 5 years for the PsyD, and again, having some of the background, I think I had the opportunity to focus more on the theoretical components that if I hadn't done therapy before, I wouldn't have been able to integrate it as well.
So in the doctoral program, did they require you to be in therapy as a part of the program?
They didn't.
Because some do.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, did they require you to be in therapy with one of the tenured instructors or somebody else? But they didn't require that.
No, we did peer supervision, and so that tended to be kind of therapy because you knew that person has been there, and so the tears and things like that would go to that person. Whereas my supervisor, who was also my dissertation chair and the clinical trainer there, so she was my world. It was the more supervision aspect of things, the more traditional supervision.
And what was your dissertation on?
So the impact of internalizing symptoms on the executive functioning of kids with ADHD. And so essentially, in other words...
I love those titles.
In other words...
gripping.
It was that I had come across some research suggesting that kids with ADHD and anxiety have similar abilities of planning and organization and attention to kids without either.
Yeah.
But then other research that contradicted that. And so I was trying to, look and see
People
what
still
I saw.
don't agree.
Well, it's not
Maybe
clear.
maybe they haven't all read your research.
Well, right. And so my study showed that it was ADHD plus anxiety or depression is worse than just ADHD, which is worse than nothing. But I still think that in certain situations, especially like in school, kids with ADHD and anxiety hold it together better, and then they lose it when they get home. So it's kind of not either or.
The theory is that they tend to have a more structured and consistent environment at school than they do at home. And so they're more able to hold it together because of the structure and the consistency. Then when they go home, they fall apart because there's no structure.
And plus they hold it together because of the anxiety, the performance anxiety, the fear of being viewed a certain way. So that's compounded. But then that's also compounded when they go home. They have even more to, for their parents or their caregivers.
I worked with a lot of families around those issues, and one of the major focal points of the work for me was trying to teach the parents how to understand and manage what they were dealing with. And for instance, so many of those kids really resist time structure. You have to do foreshadowing. You have to say, in 10 minutes we're going to leave the house. You need to get this done, or this done, or this done. In 5 minutes we're going to leave the house. Because you can't just come in and say, let's go. They'll decompensate.
Right.
So I would suggest timers. Set a timer. And the kids will turn the timers off. The little kids will turn those timers off.
The older kids will do it too.
Yeah. But timers, in many specific examples, timers really helped the whole family do that. But you have to teach them about foreshadowing. You have to teach them about timing. You have to teach them about consequences. messaging. And the message to the child and the family is you are not broken. You are competent, you are capable, you have all the abilities and intelligence, but you need to learn compensatory strategies because you learn differently than other people do, or you react differently. So let's learn how to survive this. Let's learn how to move forward and make progress. Let's don't just say you're broken and fix that piece.
Yes, holistic.
Yes.
And so my background even before Webster was ABA therapy, applied behavioral analysis therapy. So I always say my background's in behaviorism, which, rewards, consequences, follow through, extinction, all really important and works. But
that'll help when you're training your husband.
Oh, don't you? I know that. But to me, it's lacking the holistic, and so that was sort of the. I would say through Webster, I learned that, and then in my PsyD program, I continued to learn about how to join with them and emotional co-regulation, and not leaving the kids as down here, talking down to, it's with.
It's an important concept, that emotional co-regulation. So let me ask you, are you licensed in Indiana or just in Missouri? Do you come back home to do supervision and get your licensure here?
So I am living in St. Louis, and again, I moved back a couple years ago to do my internship, and then since I've graduated, so I'm licensed, I have my LPC, and as of a couple weeks ago, I'm, like I said, a licensed clinical psychologist, so I'm only licensed in Missouri, but luckily that's where I live, so.
Luckily.
Yep.
Odd how that works.
So the clearly self-indulgent message that everybody wants resolved is, who did you like better?
Well, and like I said, so I had more classes with Brett.
That's a qualifier.
That's very strategically.
But so, Brett is more of a father figure, kind of, and so whether that's good or bad. And Mike is
more qualifiers.
More of a mentor. Yeah, qualifiers and modifiers. Yeah. A mentor, and Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park. So,
which you've said,
I love them both.
Yeah, and
didn't Jeff Goldblum get eaten?
He got by a
Tyrannosaurus.
That was what reminded me. Yeah.
And that's what matters in life.
Does he? Does he get? I don't think he does get eaten.
I think and he's sitting on the toilet, or is that
no? That's a different guy.
Okay.
Because Jeff Goldblum's in subsequent movies. Yeah. So he survives.
The one with the water, and he vibrations. Little cynical, but very smart.
Cynical's good
and funny.
Yeah, cynical is good. I've been told it's not good.
By people that just don't understand.
People who don't understand.
By people who are wrong.
But my hope is that what we provided in graduate school was a much more comprehensive, applied presentation that really gave people the ability to go out and do psychotherapy when they got done. So to go out and be licensed and to actually do psychotherapy, because I think both you and I that our philosophy was, we were about helping people be able to change their lives. So people were coming into that program with maybe less optimistic projections for how their life was going to be professionally than they wanted, and they were coming into that program and getting licensed and then going out and being able to have a different professional outlook.
Part of the challenge in those years, and it may still be, I'm removed from it now, but the pyramid for status, licensure, eligibility was pretty intense. And the Webster program in those days was trying to turn out license level individuals with 2 years of work who could start working and servicing a population that was underserved. You run into a situation, we did a podcast a month or so ago about the situation in Minnesota, where all of these people that are licensed at a master's level are about to be unlicensed in effect by state legislature. And what they were talking about is there are literally millions of people who are receiving services that if this law goes through won't be receiving services anymore. And so the Webster program at that time was set up to generate license level people who could work to serve those population bubbles in places where there weren't other providers who had those credentials. And in order to get the credentials that would give you the status, you'd have to get your PhD and move on. Not everyone can, will, or should do that.
Right. Well, and I think that, I guess I didn't know that was one of the goals, but that's what I've always done, is worked in that, those environments. And so, and I will say about the two of you that you're kind of my schema for that time in my life in that graduate program. And so when I saw that you guys were doing a podcast together.
So did you see us both preen? Did you notice that?
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Makes me feel good.
I'll go back and change your grade now and give you an A, yeah.
Those are, I call the golden years of the program. I don't know, but I have, and I've talked highly of both of you. Not just saying that, even though it probably sounds like I am. But when I saw you guys were doing a podcast, I was excited because I was like, yes, because they're the best.
Good. And that's why we have you here.
Exactly. So hopefully that is helpful for people and that you enjoyed that. The theme song for Psych with Mike is written and produced by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.